If you're just joining me today, my special guest is April Mitchell, and this is Thinking with Mike. It's a weekly podcast where I talk to interesting people about interesting things. And April Mitchell is a very interesting person. I met her a couple of years ago, and she's an inventor. Let me read you what and people like to say, well, she's a mom too, and she's a Marine Corps wife. She's a lot of things, mom of four. But through history, a lot of great people were parents. So I don't want to say she's great because she's a mom. But she is a great mom and she is a great inventor. So here's her bio. April Mitchell is a military spouse. Her husband's a lieutenant colonel in the Marine Corps. She's a mom of four. She's an inventor and she's a lifelong learner. She invented the right height adjustable door hook or over the door hook. And basically it allows kids of all sizes to be able to effortlessly hang their backpacks, purses, jackets, towels, whatever. April has recently licensed 5 new products in the toy and game industry, and that will be available for retail next year. She can't really talk too much about those because they're secret, but they're cool. She continues to invent and design products in the housewares, novelty, and toy and game industries with the help of her family. She has her kids all work for her, and we'll talk about that. April is the second-time patent holder. She's got me beat by one. Darn it. She has been featured in the books Become a Professional Inventor by Stephen Key, Licensing Ideas Using LinkedIn by Benjamin Harrison and Stephen Key, and Women's Inventors and the 7% by Robert Faire. She teaches classes and webinars on the inventing process and pitching in the toy and game industry, which isn't easy. She coaches new inventors on the licensing process through the company Inventor. April is also a natural health and chemical-free living educator and coach. That's why she looks so healthy. So, April, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. I really appreciate it.
I mean it. People say, oh, what can moms do? It's just enough to be a mom. And it is a lot to be a mom and a dad and a stay-at-home parent, which you've been for a while, and raising these 4 beautiful children. And, but you come from a family that has inventing in their blood, right?
Yes.
And so I think, tell us a little bit about what kind of girl you were in your upbringing before we talk about your specific career as an inventor. Or did you say inventress or inventrix?
Oh, inventor, product developer, designer, all of the above. And so, I was very, very blessed by my childhood. I lived in a neighborhood with almost 20 cousins in the same neighborhood. We did a lot of outdoor activities. We had a little cottage on a lake up in Wisconsin while we lived in Illinois. So I grew up boating and fishing and water skiing, and I played all the sports, volleyball and basketball, I ran track. So it was really active. My parents were very involved. I got to even do some drywall growing up because my dad owned a drywall business. So I had to do hard work, scraping the floors and learn the trade a little bit, which is, I think, fantastic. So I'm a girl who knows how to use a sawzall and a hammer. But I also have a little bit of a softer side, but I don't want to say I was a full on, tomboy at the time, but my dad, he had 4 girls and no sons. My parents had no boys. So it didn't matter. The girls can do anything a guy can do, kind of attitude. And that's how I was raised, that we can do anything that we want to do and we put our mind to. So I think that was fantastic. We did, of course, I did everything from play with Barbies to fish and sports. So kind of all of that area where I think it just really helped me realize that there's no limits as a kid.
It's interesting. So your dad was an electrician, right?
Drywall.
Oh, he was drywall. I thought he was an electrician for some reason. Well, drywaller too. I grew up in the trades too. My father was a contractor, so I grew up around drywallers and electricians and all that kind of stuff. And there's something about having a parent, a dad that's got the truck, got the toolboxes, right? Works with their hands. And it just, the expectations, I think, in those kind of families are a little bit different than families that don't have that, where people work with their hands. And I don't know if it's maybe they feel like you can get things done because you make them yourself or whatever. Right. If there's a hole in the wall, he could just paste it. But usually those people have more than just the skill of what they do. I've noticed it.
Most definitely, they can do everything right now. I mean, he paints, he does some electric work, he's built houses, all of those things. And you learn that. I mean, he built, we had an ice skating rink in our backyard because he built one. If we wanted something, he figured it out and built it. And, I'm sure your dad had, and you probably have now too, a work area, right? So he had a workroom where he had all these different things, and you could tinker in there and try things and check them out. And I know my grandfather had one too. And we would love going to his house and going to the basement. Even my kids loved it too, when they had the opportunity to go in the grandpa's workshop, right? And see what things are, pull out old tools and just explore in that area, because I think that can make a difference for a kid, is having the ability to explore and use different tools and to make things just because you can. You don't have to buy everything. You can make it. You can solve a problem.
Right.
And that's what makes a difference in I think in a kid's life and then upbringing and the whole innovation. I never thought that when I was growing up, I was being innovative. I was just solving problems. My dad was making a Christmas decoration, or he was making a new tool for drywall. Now you can buy them. He didn't patent it, but somebody else did, right? Because eventually if you make something for yourself, somebody else is going to have that same idea. And now it's sold in the trade stores. Fishing tools, we made them as kids. Now you can buy them. So if you make something and you don't, patent it, and I don't think patents are always necessary. We can talk about that later, but you don't get it out into the world, eventually somebody else will. So in my mind growing up, that's just things you did. You created, you solved a problem, but I never thought of it as, an inventor. My dad being an inventor when I was a kid, it was just something you did to solve problems.
Yeah. Now everyone's like it's getting kind of old now, but the maker Faire, it's like a novelty, like, hey, gee whiz, we could make things. And like growing up like you and I did, it was like, that would have been like, that's called home, right?
Yes,
and
yes.
I remember I was trying to catch a fish as a kid with my hand. We had a little tiny pond in our backyard with minnows in it. And every day I try to catch a fish with my hand. I couldn't do it. And I got a Tupperware, and I finally figured with the Tupperware, I can catch like one fish. Like,
Sure.
And my brother-in-law, who was an electrician, Charlie, said, what the hell are you doing? I said, I'm trying to catch a fish. Like I could catch it with a Tupperware. It was like an ice cream white Tupperware. He goes, give me here. He took his pipe bender. He had conduit. He bent a piece of conduit into a hoop. He took some old screen from an old screen door, kicked it out, got some wire, put wire around it, and he built this net. And I was pulling out like smelts, like hundreds of fish at a time. And it actually kind of took the joy away from it, because it's like, oh my God, it's too easy now. But I would see that all the time. Like my father, brother-in-law, my dad, just inventing what they didn't have, making what they didn't have. I saw all the time. So it's interesting, the kind of family you came from. Is this Illinois? You an Illinois girl?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you had a cabin in Wisconsin, and you ended up there too, right?
Yes. And then we moved to Wisconsin right before I started high school. So now I'm a Wisconsin girl. I spent more time in Wisconsin, I think.
Yeah, we did too. We spent a lot of, people don't know it, in Northern Illinois, really vacation land for us is Wisconsin. It's where we go in the summer, and it's because Wisconsin's just a fantastic, beautiful state. So that's interesting. So yeah, tell us now about, people, and I won't say moms like you who might be interested in it. I don't want to go there with that, because I think I see you as a person, and I think it's awesome that you raise kids and you're using your children to help you invent. We'll talk about that too. But the idea of making things came natural to you. So when you were a mom, you saw some problems in your household, and at first you didn't think to invent, did you? You kind of like researched if there were things in the market first. Is that right?
Right. That's exactly right. And so what I did was I had a problem of towels going on the floor, and I had enough laundry to do already. And so we were potty training the boys, and you would wash your hands so often that the towels were always falling. So I thought, okay, what can I buy that could just keep this up for me, so I'm not doing as much laundry? And so I researched, and there was nothing on the market that you could buy, and things that people were doing just to be innovative, like putting a clothespin or a rubber band on the towel, just wasn't cutting it for me. I'm like, okay, we're just going to get our fingers pinched and all kinds of things. So I created my first product, the towel belt, which is patented. And then that product has a huge, long story of it was many, many years, patenting, trying out for Shark Tank, all the kinds of things that new inventors do, that they just don't know what to do and what to spend their money on. So they try all these things that everyone says to do when people really don't know. So I learned a lot I will say that I learned a lot. It was a great experience. I learned a lot of what to do and what not to do. And from that, I decided and learned to do something a little different for my next product, which is the right height adjustable over the door hook. And so that when I did that, a lot less expensive. And I was able to see if there's interest in the marketplace before putting a lot of money and effort into it. But I did, need a 3D drawing, some CADs. I needed a 3D prototype to show the product actually worked. And I made a pitch video and all these things that were still new to me, but I was able to get it in front of companies that were open to outside innovation and took outside ideas. And there was so much interest in it. And after a while, I signed a licensing deal for that product, and it's in stores and online now. So there was a lot to be learned between the first product and the second product. And now it's one thing that just becomes natural, where first you have an idea and you just do the research and look up to see what's already on the market, what's similar, read the reviews, how can yours be better, what can you change, those kinds of things. And just go from there. So I'm doing things that we would like, that we want, that I see a hole in the marketplace, taking some things, making them better. In the toy game industry, we take ideas that are just fun that my kids were doing anyway. And sometimes I do work for design for hire as well, where someone will say, here's a theme we need a game on, or here's an idea. Can you come up with something with that? And like the kids help with some of that. Sometimes it's an adult game, so it's not kid necessary help for that, but it just really kind of depends on the situation. So it's been a lot of fun. We're having a lot of fun with it.
It does sound like fun, and I've seen you've done a little bit of work for us, and you might be doing some more actually. I've seen your process where you throw things in front of the kids and you work things out. So explain to us before we get into the patenting, and because I do want to ask you about protecting yourself, but before I ask you about that, and I won't forget, tell us about what it's like to have a inventor's thinking cap, because people might say, I don't know, I don't think I could be an inventor. But tell us, like, are you special? Do you have a special gene, or is there a kind of method to your madness?
I think we are all creative in our own way. I do feel like we're all blessed with some kind of creativity, whether someone's a musician or an artist, or can take something, see something, and figure out how to make it better. Some way. I think we all have that creativity in us. I can't take all the credit. My ideas just appear. Oftentimes when I can't sleep because my husband's snoring, it's like God says, sorry, you can't sleep, but here you go. Boom.
What time of night? Let me just ask you, what time of night usually?
Usually late, like, I don't know, midnight, 1, 2 o'clock. And then I hurry and write things down and, take mental video, like photos. But then also sometimes I have to invent on demand. If I'm doing design work for someone, I may have to come up with, several different versions of a game in a couple day period. And so you have to just, be ready to be creative on demand. And then there's things and games and tools you can do, like, take a couple, products that have nothing to do with each other and figure out a way to combine them. There's little fun twists and things you can do. So I think there's ways where everyone can learn to be a little more creative. And I think it's one of those things too, where you have to learn to ask questions, right? So when I walk out of my office door and there's something flying across my living room, instead of that gut reaction as a mom, like, what are you doing? Like, stop throwing stuff. It's like, what just happened? Ooh, show me again. How did you do that? And you're like, well, we took this thing and then we made it go this way and we used this for that. And then so I'm asking them questions and having them explain what they're doing and how they're playing it. And then boom, a game is born from some unlikely things that aren't meant to be used that way, that are now being used that way. And will be out next year as a game. So it's being inquisitive and asking those questions and seeing, okay, how can we change it and make it more fun? I mean, you think there's a lot of games out there. For example, I'm just going to bring up a game that a lot of people know is bags or cornhole, right? And it's very simple how to play that. But if you ever watch just little kids play that, they make up their own rules and they're doing something completely different. And if you just watch them, just see what they're doing and then ask them why, and why is it more fun or this or that, you can come up with a whole new game just from something that already exists and just tweaking it and making it better. That's something that the kids, like their imagination or their insides is directing them to play it that way for some reason, you know? So
right. So you're treating your kids kind of like a little laboratory of play.
Yes.
That's one aspect, right?
Sure.
And then there's the aspect of solving problems that other people might come at you with that you haven't considered yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
so, and there's, I have in front of me some technologies. Like, here's one technology. Could you see that?
Oh yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and then there's like what happens in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
And famously, you know, this one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Thankful for
And
that.
then somebody said, you know,
yeah.
I'll put it in my hair. And these are all the same thing, you know.
Right,
and
right.
one of our first companies that made our toy product was a company in Wisconsin, a plastics injector. And they were able to expand their business when chip clips came out. And they actually hired half the town or more as day labor to come out, sit in chairs. They put on movies in the big TV screens, and they just put springs and chip clips. And they were the first manufacturers of chip clips. So, but it's just amazing where somebody could take a technology and say, boy, if I can take that clothespin and close potato chip bags, you know, we're in business. And so I think that's kind of interesting. I have a few more inventions here. This one, have you seen this one yet?
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
It's utterly fantastic. If you've ever had to floss your teeth, you know, it's a disposable thing. I know it's plastic and disposable, but it's not stupid, you know, and it's like, they do break, you have to watch it, but these are amazing, these little floss things. I had one more thing here. I just a little, before I came over, I said, what's some inventions in my house I could bring over? This guy.
Oh yeah.
Because you open it up, it's one, and the neat thing about that is these are all hinged products, but this hinged product, and of course I sell hinged products, so I know about hinged product. This is actually the one piece came out of a mold, but the one membrane here is stressed in a way it's so thin you can make a hinge out of it. So you can close your toothbrush around it, which I thought was great.
Right.
So those are little examples of little seemingly simple inventions, right? That definitely solve very, very specific problems that are real problems, right? And so you solve a problem, right? And most people think, oh, you better patent that because, you know, people will steal your idea. And you're pitching to people who are sharks who would love to steal your idea probably. So without spending $1 billion, how do you protect your idea?
So what I like to do, so I can't give anyone legal advice, but I'll tell you what I like to do and has worked well for me is I will file a provisional patent. So it's called a PPA. And what that does, it gives you 12 months from the day you filed it to have patent pending status. And in that time frame, what I do is I send out my marketing material to companies that are open to outside innovation and see if there's interest.
Right.
And if there is, then I may file a utility patent, the more expensive patent, right? And you get to base some of your utility patent off of claims from your provisional. So you do want to make, I try to make my provisional very broad in the, you know, in what it encompasses, but you can go back to that. And that's your original filing date is the date of the provisional patent.
But so you could put on a provisional patent. You could do it on a napkin, right? I mean, it could be pretty crude.
It can be some things have been photos, some line drawings, some just bad drawings of mine. I have all kinds of ones because they don't get looked at. They don't get looked at.
They're not, it's just a timer, right? You're setting a timer.
Right. And then you're having that perceived ownership and nobody knows what you're trying to patent because nobody's going to see it. So they have no idea, okay, what are they exactly trying to patent over here with this patent pending status? So that's what I like. It's like a mystery. It's kind of a secret. What are they patenting? But it gives you that year timeline. And if I pitch a product and there's no interest after a year, often I just let it go. Just let it go. No one will ever see what's in there. Maybe someday in the future, I may be able to make it better, upgrade it or something to see if there's, interest further down the road. But I just let it go because the patents, as you know, I'm sure are very expensive and they can take a lot of back and forth with the patent office and lawyers. And
they are right. And people have heard nightmares, but provisional patents aren't that expensive. How much should it cost you to do your provisional?
I think it's under $80
Yeah.
for
If you
most
hire
people,
a
I would
lawyer, it
say.
might be a couple $100 if a lawyer does it for you, but
Yeah, if a
80 bucks.
lawyer helps you with it, it'll be more than that for, the lawyer fees. But you can write your own, very, very easily. I'd say there's a lot of books on there on how to write them. And then you just have, like I said, you have that perceived ownership and you have that timeline, and it's definitely worth it. It's made a difference because I would say, and I don't want you to quote me, but it's over 90%, I think, of patents are never make it to the retail space.
Yeah,
So
that
they're
sounds
just
even low. I
sitting
think, yeah.
there, and people put all this money in it, and it never sees the daylight.
Those are full on patents. Those aren't even provisionals.
Right. Those are full on patents, at least $7,000 to $10,000, and you got to renew them every 3.5 years.
And some companies, to be fair, because it sounds like all these poor inventors did all this stuff and a lot of those patents are filed by big companies that patent every possible way to make a muffler for Caterpillar, for instance, and they'll patent around their patents because they just don't want anybody to get even close to their idea. So they intentionally make patents they'll never make because they don't want people to have any proximity to their product. So there are patents that are made with no intention of market. It's all legal, what's the right word? Obstacle creating, the game, and little fish like us, we got to be really careful because we don't want to sink our business before it starts. I went into manufacturing directly. I didn't think of myself as an inventor. I just thought of myself as a person with a problem. I had a problem that I had to solve myself. And so it turned into a toy. But, and so we decided to make it because we believed in it, but that's not normally the route. And you went a different route where you said, I think I've solved the problem, but I don't want to be a manufacturer. I don't want to do it to my family and become consumed with getting on Amazon and trying to sell stuff and, fulfill orders and all that crazy stuff. You said, I'd like to just be able to take the ball and then pass it on. So how does that work? So you go to pitch these people. Tell us the process of your hot idea and how you are able to pass the ball.
Yeah. So of course I do the research. I make a prototype or a virtual prototype, make marketing material. So a sell sheet and or a video. In the toy and game business, you just have to have a video. You have to show people playing with the product, having fun, all of that good stuff. You know all about that. It's got to look like not only it is the best thing, but you have to really show kids or people enjoying it. So, and then I set up meetings to pitch over, like what we're doing now over Zoom. I've gone to trade shows now. Most of them are virtual. Sometimes companies would rather just send over a video and then get back to you. So I pitch either via email or, at a show or virtual show. And then what happens is when they decide to go with the product, they license it, which means they're basically renting my idea for a set time. I would say usually it's 3 to 5 years in a contract as the first initial term. And they rent that idea, they manufacture it, and they get it to store shelves because they already have the shelf space. They already have the relationships with the buyers from the stores. So then what I do is then I collect a percent, a royalty rate for each product, for each item, each time it sells. So it's a percent royalty rate per product every time it sells. And usually you get those checks quarterly. So when you have, a few products out there, it adds up, and it's a great way to do it because what I enjoy doing is the creative process. I like taking an idea from my head, putting it into reality and seeing that get to a real product. And then I want to leave to the professionals getting it onto store shelves. And I love building relationships. It's fantastic. I've been meeting with buyers for some of my products as well and help with that. So it's unfortunately, I can't say it's not just boom, boom, hands off. There's still a lot that goes with it as an inventor, keeping up with things. And each company lets you have different responsibilities. So for one product, I am trying to build these relationships with buyers where they're not at. But that's not typical. Another company, I'm getting say in, the color and checkups on the product. So some products I get to be more involved with depending on the company that licensed, and then some not so much. So it just kind of really depends on the company and the relationship and how much they want me as the inventor involved in things. So
there's a de-risking that goes on. If you're a retailer, right? And you're a buyer as a retailer, you want to be able to locate, source, and get product that's going to be hot, that's going to fly off the shelf, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having someone like you walk into Walmart headquarters and say, I've got a new product, they're going to be like, it's ridiculous because you have no track record. The risk is way too high because we're talking, we buy, tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars of merchandise from so they want to see a rep from Hasbro or a rep from, some other kind of company does chip clips, right? And they know these people, they've worked with them before. So they trust that if they say it's going to move, that's been de-risked. So they're putting they're staking their reputation on it. Not your reputation means nothing to them, right?
Exactly. They often don't know or care about who the inventor is, right?
No, right.
And it's about SKUs too. And I've learned this just from working with the buyers I have worked with, is it's hard to just get a new item with one SKU into a store. Now, if you've got a whole line, then it may be, a different story. And it does take work and time. And I know many inventors who have gotten their products into retailers on their own, but it's taken a lot of time. It's taken a lot of resources and relationships, and oftentimes someone to connect that helps get it into those retailers. Because,
so people know, what does SKU stand for? It's SKU. What does it stand for?
Yeah. So it's per item, right? So say you've got my hook, we have 3 different finishes, a white, a nickel, and a black. Right. So that's 3 SKUs.
Right.
So
3 individual retail items. A SKU is a retail, it's a code. And it says, this is it's your thing, purple or whatever it is. Right. Yeah. And usually they want to buy more SKUs because they want to be able to fill up a certain piece of real estate in a store. Mm-hmm. Right. They don't want to dedicate a tiny little part. So it's better to have a whole end cap or a little, portion that you could just install all these little things. So to have 18 of them would be better than to have 3, for instance.
Right. Exactly. And then a lot of things, a lot of times they want it tested out. So maybe they take something, if it's done well on Amazon, then they might be more likely to put it in the store. A lot of the stores will sell it online and see how it does online before they bring it in the actual store. So every retailer is different. It's definitely a lot to learn. And I do think one day I may manufacture a product of mine. I have, there's so many that I love and I believe in that, one day I might just say, you know what, I'm going to go for this on my own. And I think it's amazing how many inventors succeed that way, where maybe there just wasn't a company that believed in their product at that time, or maybe it just was the timing or whatnot. And then they go for it, manufacture their product, and it does extremely well, even though every company turned them down. So,
and you become, I think what some inventors do is they become niche in a good sense. They become really acquainted with a certain line of technology, right? Sure. And they become increasingly more critical of the options that the consumer has. Mm-hmm. Right? They become almost a critic. And I think a lot of movie directors, for example, are like that. A lot of movie directors are great critics of movies because they know the kind of movie they want to make and they know the shit that's being made. And they're like, oh my God, if I had my chance of making a science fiction movie, it would kill. Right. And finally they get their chance and it sucks too. But my point, creators are also critics. They just happen to be because they care about their art, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times these big mega corporations, they don't really give a crap about the nitty gritty high end of their product lines. They're just talking numbers, right? So mm-hmm. boutique high end quality stuff that might not even be on their radar, because even if it was successful, it wouldn't blow the top off of things. It doesn't really move their needle, right?
Right.
So it's the big companies may recognize that a product might be really good at something, but even if it achieved its maximum cap, they just don't visualize it making enough money for them to invest in. So it's not personal. It's just they don't see that being. It's an art film. It's never going to go anywhere. It's an art. It'll be a great art film. It'll win an Academy Award, maybe, to go back to that metaphor. But sometimes you get people who are like, I think that computers are going to be used for more than NORAD and banks and insurance companies. I think that like Apple did famously, they said, we want to make computers for housewives. We see computers on countertops in kitchens. Right. Mm-hmm. And no one imagined that. No one thought at the time back in the 70s that computers were for domestic use in homes. So mm-hmm. some companies do have imagination. So it's interesting. So you think that maybe someday, you think you'd ever go into business with your husband, the lieutenant colonel?
I don't know. I think I would be willing to try it, but I don't think he would would want to. He's always told me he could never work with me. He's had to help me so much throughout the years. I used to be the person who would break the computer like every time I touched it. Like he would come home from work and I'd be like, I need you to help me with something. And and I think he was just like would rather stay at work a couple hours because he didn't want longer because he didn't know what he's gonna have to help fix that day. Um, but I was that person who would break everything into now, where I'm making my own iMovies to pitch to people. So I think it would have to be the right product or idea that we both believe in, because he has some ideas of businesses that he'd like to do as well. He likes to joke he doesn't know what he's gonna be when he grows up. I don't know what he's going to do either, but I think sometimes you have so many choices, you have so many possibilities that it's hard to narrow things down. But I don't know, that one will have to be for the future to see.
I've been so many Marine Corps officers and their level of competency is so generally high that whatever they seem to go into, they seem to be leaders, especially officer corps and a senior officer like your husband there. They seem to do well. And my wife and I launched a business together, and people would say to me at trade shows, they say, I can never go into business with my wife. That would never happen. And in majority, they were like shocked that like somebody would work with their wife. So I was like, really? That's like, we've been doing that for a long time. So, and my wife and I were both entrepreneurial. My father was an entrepreneur. My mom was, her father was a builder. He was a cop and builder on the side. So the whole family was very entrepreneurial, risk takers types. So it was, seemed natural to me, but yeah. So people at home are thinking, what, if they come up with an idea, what's the checklist that you would suggest? If somebody has an idea, like, just bugging me that no one's ever figured out how to hold an iPhone in a car the way I want to do it, whatever it is, right? Yeah. What would you say is the big checklist that you'd go through first?
Well, what the first thing I direct people to do, which was just my saving grace for my second project, is to purchase the book called One Simple Idea by Stephen Key. And this walks you through that checklist that I continue to do today, which, it's market research, it's filing a PPA that we talked about, it's making marketing material, it's reaching out to companies. And, I think the biggest holdback for people is that part where it's reaching out to companies, because you see this in your mind, this big CEO of a company or whatnot. And you think, well, it's just little me here. This is my first idea. Why would they want to talk to me? But let me tell you, the amount of products who've come out from people who've it's been their first idea, their first product that they tried to make anything of it is very astounding amount. So first of all, you have to have the right mindset that you have something to offer them. You kind of have to change that. And I coach a lot on that, act like you belong. When you're making that phone call to those companies, to those people, you're reaching out to them on LinkedIn, to act like you belong, that they actually are going to appreciate what you have to say, that you're doing them a favor instead of the other way around. So, and then once you're in the game, we call it in the game, reaching out to companies, chatting with them, showing them your marketing material, that's when things happen. You're going to get a lot of no's. You're going to get a lot of no's. I think my hook, I got it, I don't know, over 50, 70 no's. I don't even know. I don't even keep track, but it is something I think everyone can do. You do have to be, of course, willing to learn. You have to have the right mindset, and it's something that you have to renew daily, because one day of getting a lot of no's can bring you down really easily, and you just can't let it, because they're not rejecting you. It just is not a right fit for their company at that time or the right category. I mean, I've had companies laugh uncontrollably from a video and a product and love it, but they can't place it because they're not looking for a game in that specific micro category, but they need another hole to fill. And so they won't even change their for something that they love. So it could be something that makes no sense to us as the inventor of why they don't choose it. And like that, when they can't stop laughing at the product and they want to play it. But they have to fill a different hole. So, but just keep at it. And when you are in the right place, it's easier to get a yes. And that's a quote from a good friend of mine, Ed Garton. When you're in the right place, it's easier to get a yes, because oftentimes we want to, like, as inventors, throw spaghetti at the wall and show anyone who's willing to listen or look. And you've got to be in the right place, and know what companies are open and who's looking for ideas. And if it's in the same category, I mean, I'm sure you know, Mike, that even because a company's a toy company doesn't mean that your idea will fit just because it's a toy. It might be a company specific for learning or STEM, or it might be arts and craft company only. And here you come with a dancing cow and they're like, how is this a craft? And you're like, but it's a toy, and
Right.
it's not the right fit, you know? So you've got to know your audience, and that takes time. It takes time and in learning about the companies. So,
Yeah.
and finding the right one and signing that deal. And, it's a lot of fun. It does take a lot of work. I would say the majority of my products, well, a good few of them I pitched for about a year before I signed a contract, finding the right company. By the time they tested and this and that, it was a year of pitching before a contract was signed. One product was a few months, one was just 1 month, and it was the first company I showed it to. But that's not common. It's going to be getting those no's. It's going to be having to keep following up and knowing that companies are busy. You know, they're not waiting, you know, at the phone or on their email for your call as much as we want them
how do you
to.
know who the gatekeepers are?
Well, I tell you, the best people that I found to reach out to is head of sales and marketing, because if sales people know what's selling, and marketing people know, you know, all of what's selling and marketing. So if they like it, then oftentimes they can get it to the product development team and pitch it. Now,
That's a good idea. And salespeople love to talk to people. They always pick up their phone, don't they?
I do think so. And a lot of companies do have specific people for outside innovation. So you do want to make sure you do talk to the right people, because if a company has a set person to deal with outside innovation with inventors, then pitching it to the marketing team's not going to do me any good if they direct me to this one specific person.
Right. Did you ever get like a suggestion like, well, if it was only this, we'd do it. Like if you nudge that invention this way a little bit, we'd probably bite. Does that happen?
You know, it does. And I think a lot of times it's easy to do that. I mean, material doesn't have to be set in stone, or size doesn't have to be set in stone. You know, I've had people say, well, how could we make this game that, you know, isn't a board game into a board game? Or how can we make this not have any chance in it, so that no matter what, like whoever does the right thing wins? So you just have to be able to think of things like that on the spot and say, oh, well, we can do this, you know, and then you can always change the prototype a little bit, or, you know, change the gameplay up to show it the way that they were thinking. It's interesting because a lot of companies, they have that vision where they can take an idea and say, we like this, but we'd want to take it and use it for this, or use it this way. And then some companies, you're in the creation business. Of course we can just do that. That's not a big deal. But for them, it's somehow a hang up. So you have to show it to them all over again with that tweak, you know. I think it depends on the person, the company, but it's definitely doable to just change something. And
do you think it would be? You haven't mentioned it at all yet. All of these, you see commercials from all the time. These companies that want you to, they want to help you.
Oh, okay.
And what do you say about a lot of these companies that you see them advertise a lot, that they want to help you with your invention and get it going? Are these sham operations? Are they a mixed bag? What's your experience with any of them, if at all?
Well, that's a good question. So I fell for a couple different companies. I'll just say that, where they want you to pay this money and they're going to do all the work for you, right? Sure. They're going to make your marketing material. They're going to pitch it for you. You just sit back there and relax. right? What I have found is that my product is not important to other people. If they're getting paid and whether my product gets licensed or not doesn't matter to them, it's a priority for me, and I'm going to push it the best and the most, and I'm going to make it my priority over other products. So I do think there are some reps out there that are, maybe if they're in a niche category, sometimes it can be worthwhile to partner with them. But as far as the whole inventing as a whole, I think it's important to learn the process, because if you have one idea, you're most likely going to have more ideas. So there's a lot of coaches out there in the industry that can take you through the process and teach you and guide you so that then you can go and do it on your own later. And that's what I think is important. And personally, that's what worked for me, was finding the company Inventor who they helped walk me through it, right? You had extra eyes on marketing material, you had suggestions, you had help with back and forth. And so that's what I do now, is I help coach other new inventors on the process. I'm not going to do it for you, because that's not going to help you any. And no one cares about your product as much as you do. So I think it's important for you to work on your product, each inventor to work on their product and learn the steps and the stages so that they can rinse and repeat. Because once I did it, with everything, it's nice to have a coach, right? Or a teacher to guide you. And once you do it once, you can do it again. Then maybe you have questions and you go back to old coaches and teachers and ask questions and maybe get some help. But I think it's really important for you to do it. So I personally have found that companies that just want to be and they do it all have not worked out well for me. But again, if you're learning the process and that you're getting the coaching and the help, that I think is key, so that you can repeat it over and over again.
Yeah. I heard somebody the other day in an interview, and he said, he was a famous physicist, a cosmologist. And he said, he's learned over the time with academics to not trust experts, because experts all have their own game they're playing to. And it's easy to say no to an idea. Right. Yeah. And people, so it's easy, and it might be right to say no, but he said, if you really believe in something, don't trust expert opinion necessarily, go out and, stick with it for a while and see if your idea really does have legs. And that means, like you said, sell it yourself, be its own best advocate. Don't say, well, will you please approve this product for me? Because I'm not sure. Make sure you're sure yourself, and so if you want to test the veracity of an idea, is there a way to do it before you even pitch it? Like you come up with an idea and you want to test its validity. You want to validate it before you even start pitching it to somebody, because you don't want to be embarrassed, right? Is there a way you test a product idea yourself with your family or friends, or how do you do it if you do it?
I really don't, because here's the thing, your family, now mine's brutally honest. They'll say, Mom, that's just, no. or, oh yeah, that's cool. Like, I'll know if they genuinely do or do not like an idea. But most often families either don't get it, don't understand what you're trying to do, that you're inventing what, or they'll just, oh, that's great. Just so encouraging, they won't tell you. So your family, it can be kind of difficult whether, they're going to be honest with you or not. I don't go and ask strangers. I have a few inventing friends. I may have asked them to have a look at something or get feedback. I do now have the few people that I can ask for thoughts and feedback on. But I put it out there, because the thing is, for under a few $100s between a patent and some design work, and marketing material, as I can find out quickly from 15 to 20 companies whether anyone's interested or not. So to me, I think that's your best bet. Now, here's the thing. If you have several companies that are saying the same thing and giving the same feedback, it might be worth listening to it. If you have, 5 or 6 companies that all give completely different feedback, then you have to decide what, if anything, do you want to listen to? Because you don't always want to. If you feel like, no, this is how the product should be to its core, then keep it that way. But I know me personally, I license a product by listening to feedback from a couple of different companies, and I changed the video of the product, and then it was licensed. So I think you really have to weigh whether it's worth it or not to change it, and what feedback to listen to. But if you listen to every single person's feedback, you'd be changing your one product 20, 30 times. It's not feasible.
What's the difference between an invention and a product?
I don't really think there's a difference. I think, well, an invention, I guess some could say, is something completely new. A product, maybe a new product would be taking something that already exists and making it better, making it, adding something new to it, changing it up.
Mm-hmm.
So you can look at it that way. Also design, a lot of people in this industry consider themselves more of designers, right? If you're designing a game, you're not necessarily inventing something always. You may be designing a new gameplay or combining gameplays with a new couple different pieces or artwork or things like that. So I think it depends on how you look at it.
So if somebody comes up with a hair clip, right? But it's like, it's made out, it's just ugly. And you have this like cool idea that looks different, but it's basically the same thing. What would you suggest that person should do? It's not a novel invention. You can't get a patent for it because the patent clerk will say it has to be novel. It looks like Hiramashi's invention from 1971, which is, you can't invent it. So what can you do if you have an idea that's not novel, but would kill in the marketplace?
Well, if the product was already on the market, sometimes people go for design patents. So
what is that?
So a design patent would say, so that claw clip that you have there, that's a patent. But if you then have it a different way, maybe it turns out a different way or something, the design is different. So I think some people would try to go for a design patent. That's definitely different than the PPA, but what I still would do the market research, make sure it doesn't exist, that there isn't any patents on it or design patents on it. And then also, do up some marketing material. If you can do a prototype, if ever you can do a prototype, a physical prototype, that's fantastic, and shoot a little video and see if there's interest. The main thing is interest. If there's no interest, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, what I've heard is, and I've seen too, is some people getting a patent is an ego stroke. And it's almost like vanity publishing for novelists, right? They got their patent, they got their patents, whatever it is, and they just it strokes their ego. Have you ever seen that phenomenon?
Well, I think people are excited about it because it takes so much work and money, So I definitely can see that, but I know for me, it was a labor of love, but I also didn't know any better. So when I got my second patent, I felt, okay, this one makes sense because that product's on the market. And now I'm protecting this product and some other variations of it. So I think some companies want or will require patents. And usually those are bigger companies. And then some don't care. So, some companies I sign licensing deals with, I'll ask how important is IP to you? I had one company like the name I used for my product, and they said, we really like this name, let's trademark this name, right? But they knew they couldn't patent anything. Why waste their time trying? Because it was not anything patentable. So a lot of companies just don't care, but then there's companies that they won't license anything unless there's IP available for that product. So I think it just really depends on the company and the product, but a lot of things just aren't patentable because, like you said, that like clip example, something's already patented, something already done, you can't patent it, but you could still make something new from it, right? And create something that's making a lot of money.
Right. Yeah. And there is that practical, I just want to make money. I want to make a product that's going to sell. And sometimes first to market is the way to go. Get it out there, sell the crap out of it. And then next year it'll get copied, but you made your money and go home. And
I think, on top of what you're saying, Mike, is getting out there as the inventor of that product so people know and see you as well, because I know that that has helped with several products that have had copycats, when people knew who the real inventors were, and when people, I think they can relate to you. Oh, she's a mom. Oh, she's another military spouse. Oh, I want to support her and not these copycats. I want to support the real inventor of this and not the copycats, right? So I think it's important to get our stories out there and get some publicity, some PR whenever possible, so people see that product and they realize, okay, this is the person I want to support. It is someone trying to get their ideas out into the world, have a business, make some money, and we don't need to put money for these companies over here that are making billions of dollars copying everybody.
Yeah, and that's a new cultural phenomenon of people wanting to buy a narrative, especially for early adopters. They want to invest in. I had somebody who invested in me early on. She's still a friend of mine, and she said, "Well, I'll tell you, I bought your product because I saw you were made in America, and I knew you were small and trying to do something different, and that's something I believe in." So she bought, but she's become a great customer. But so that's how you get to those early adopters. They want to hear the story. They want to know that they don't want an anonymous thing that came from a big company. They want to hear this is something that came from a source. They want to hear about that source. That's just fascinating. So if people want to learn more about April Mitchell and or hire you to be a coach, if they want to invent something, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'd say I'm most active on LinkedIn. So definitely look up April Mitchell on LinkedIn. 4A's Creations is the name of my business. So if you look up April Mitchell at 4A's Creations, you will find me there. I also have a website, but it's just a little bit of landing page with my information. One of these days, it will be updated with everything that I've done and places I've been at. But that is www.4, the number 4, the numeral, ascreations.com.
And that's for the kids in your family, right?
Yeah, so that's all of us. Yeah, the 4 kids. Yep, Anthony, Alexander, Abraham, and Annabelle. Yep, and my husband's name is Tony, and everyone always thinks, "Oh, you're all A's," and I'm like, "No, his name is legally Tony. It's not Anthony."
It's not Anthony.
So it throws everybody off. So he's Tony, and we're his age.
The 4 A's are the kids.
Yeah, the 4 A's are the kids. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So, and I know you have your kids help you with these ideas, and I wish you luck in the future. And I'd like to hear about these products once they're available. Maybe you come back next year and talk about your new products in the marketplace and the evolution of April Mitchell as you grow in your career.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That would be fantastic. That would be great. And then maybe we can talk about the stories of those, because I tell you, some of them the kids made the prototypes for, and we have them. And you're thinking, that is now this? What? Yeah. You know, it's neat to see how it progresses to what it is once it's on the retail spaces. So thank you again for having me. It was fantastic. And
absolutely. And good luck to you, and good luck to your husband in any career move he makes. And thank him for me for his service too. Okay.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, April.
Bye.
Bye.